Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order at 1 o'clock, and it sure is nice to see council, and I know there's staff in the background here somewhere. These proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. Can we have the clerk conduct a roll, please?
Thank you. Mayor Clarkson, are you present?
I am.
Deputy Windover?
Present.
Councillor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Flanagan?
Present.
Councillor Lambshead?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CIO Treasurer.
Present.
Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Ann Ruth, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Sarah Dillamarter, Junior Planner.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services. Clerk is present.
Thank you. Now we're going to have the land acknowledgement and a moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge the Trent Lakes and the Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory, in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nation, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nation, which include Alderville, Beau Soleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Rema, and Scugog Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Now we will take that moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Thank you. Now, on behalf of staff and council, I'd like to express our heartfelt sympathy to our CIO Treasurer, Donna Taggart, on the passing of her mother. We hope that you are comforted by the good memories you have had with her, and our thoughts are with you and your family. At this time, I'm going to remind council members of their obligation to declare pecuniary interest that they may have at this time or at any time during the meeting. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? That motion has carried. We also need to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of May 3rd and the statutory public meeting of May 3rd. A motion to adopt all minutes. Councillor Lambshead? Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion has carried. Minutes, reports from committees and boards, Economic Development Advisory Committee for May 9th and the Police Services Board. Motion, please. Councillor Franzen? Councillor Lambshead, all in favor?
Oh, a question, please, Mayor?
Yes.
Just a comment on the economic development. Harry Reese made a presentation on population growth and the seasonal residents moving to the lakes. Can council have, is there a copy of that presentation that council could receive, or could Terry make that presentation to council? I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts.
I think, Carol, test your memory, but I think he was asked to come back to council, was he not?
I think he was, but also that should be a part of the record of the meeting. So it could be circulated to all of council here. I think I have a copy. I'll send it to all members of council.
Okay, appreciate that. I'd be very interested in reading it.
Okay, so
Sorry, I had a question as well. Police Services Board, there was a mention in there about motorcycle events and that we should be expecting higher motorcycle traffic in the next little while. Is there anything you can sort of share about that?
the Lions Club is hosting a motorcycle rally on the 29th. I think it's the 29th. And it will start at the community center and it'll run up through Kenmont and back around again, much like the Corvette show did last year, following the circuit too.
That's May 29th or June 29th?
June.
June.
But I understand, I think there's going to be other ones, but those are not speeded, they're not timed or anything. It's just it's an old person's ride.
Gotcha.
Any other, I know at the other police services, we talked also about the bringing back photo radar. Because when I went to Good Roads, the OPP, the head of the OPP spoke about them as being valuable, but that's not the report we got here. I disagree with it. I think it's the only way to control it, and I think it's too bad to pay young officers the money that we pay them to chase speeding cars, and the camera can do the same thing. That's my story I'm sticking to. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion carried. Now we have a presentation from Bob Taylor Vasey, Chair of Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee regarding Trent 7 Waterway Draft Master Plan. Please unmute your audio, share your camera, and make your presentation. You'll have 10 minutes. We'll ask council that all questions are saved to the end of the presentation. Mr. Vasey, are you there? Are you there, Bob? Maybe we'll just move on till he shows up.
Perhaps we could just take a quick recess and we can try and get him
Hooked up?
connected.
Okay.
Peter, how come you're not wearing glasses? I look at the rest of council and I see that you're not wearing
Yeah, see
glasses.
that there, Terry.
That's a testament to your good vision, I'm sure.
A
But,
testament to surgery. I wore
okay.
glasses all my life since I was about 8 years old.
Mhm.
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties and we're going to ask for a motion to defer this presentation till after we do some of the other ones, and then we will hook back up when it becomes available. If I can have a motion to that effect, please. Deputy Mayor Windover, are you making that motion? And seconded by Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Thank you. Now we're going to have some liaison reports for council boards and committees. If there is any reports from Economic Development, Parks or Rec, Police Services Board, or the Library Board, we can take them at this time. If not, we will take a motion. Can I have a motion, please, or a comment?
There's no motion, so if there's no updates, we can just move on.
Okay, thank you. Statutory public meeting, we don't have one. Business arising from that meeting, none. Presentations, we're waiting. Delegation. Will we go ahead with this one?
We will try, yes. We do
Okay.
have Christy on the line.
Okay, we will now have a presentation from Christy Virgo, the Director of Stewardship and Conservation Lands for the 4th Region Conservation Authority regarding talking forest. Please unmute your audio, share your camera, and make your presentation. You will have 10 minutes. Council, please hold your questions till the end of the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you to Council for inviting me to come and make this presentation with regards to the talking forest, which is a new feature that we have here at Ken Reed Conservation Area. You can go skip ahead a couple of slides here. It's just the introductory stuff. So the talking forest is an interactive, it's a free interactive app that we have developed within our conservation areas. So Kawartha Conservation owns and manages 5 conservation areas throughout the watershed. And during, our vision for those properties is really to create opportunities for people to connect with nature in a way that's meaningful for them. And in 2020, when the world locked down because of COVID, we saw a huge number of people coming to our conservation areas, far greater than we had in previous years. We knew that our green spaces were becoming more and more popular with the community. And we also saw that families were suddenly being forced to support the homeschooling of their children, where they may or may not have the capacity to do so. They may or may not have the education or the background in outdoor education to provide some of those services to kids and keep them safe. And so we started talking in our team about, how could we as a conservation authority access to all these beautiful spaces and access to all this wonderful knowledge about the environment? How could we share it with the community? And so we started talking about, signage and whether or not we could increase the amount of signage that we put on our properties. And then we started talking about, that evolved into QR codes. They were becoming very popular. People were using them all the time, especially with the passports and stuff. And so we talked about that. And then, we sort of sat down and went, well, wait a minute. What if the trees, what if we could do it so that the trees could actually talk and could tell the story of the forest and could provide that education and that outreach to these families verbally through their phones? And that was how the app was sort of born, the idea of the app. But of course, I'm not a techie person, so we had to reach out to some app developers. We talked to a group in Newmarket called Tree Frog and talked to them and shared with them our wonderful idea of having trees talk to people. And they were able to take that information and turn it into an accessible app for our community. So you can go ahead and progress. So how does it work? I should probably preface this part of the presentation with saying I'm not a techie person. My son is 15 years old. He still has to explain to me how to connect my phone to my car all the time so I can listen to my music. So, and with that in mind, we talked to the app developer and said, we need to have control over this app, but we need to have it in such a way that somebody with my level of comfort with technology could actually update it. We're not technology experts. And so they did. They created this wonderful app that is geo-referenced. So it's done with geofencing, which is basically just taking an area around the tree and digitally identifying that area as being sort of the trigger, so that when you walk past it, you open your app, and when you walk past that area, the tree starts to talk automatically. So there's no, the individual just opens the app on their phone, and then they don't have to think about it after that. It talks to them when it's supposed to, and it stops when it's supposed to. If I could teach my 15-year-old to do that, that would be wonderful. But so we were very clear with our developer, though, that we didn't want to have to go back to them on an ongoing basis to say, oh, can you change this tree, or could you change this trail, or could we update the script? So we wanted to have control over that, and we wanted it to be really easy. So that's where they developed this geo editor app for us, where we could go out, we can take the points in any one of our parks, we can add trails, we can take trails off if we want to turn off a trail for whatever reason. We can change up the scripts, we can do all of that. We can manage all of that in-house, which is really important, was really important to us, but it's far more economically feasible for us to do that than to pay an app developer every time we wanted to change the script on a tree. So you can go ahead to the next. So technically, the technicality behind the app is we have 15, 16 trees in our first iteration. We piloted the program on one of our trails within Ken Reid Conservation Area, and since then we've actually expanded it. We have a First Nations knowledge trail also at Ken Reid, and then we also have a trail at Windy Ridge Conservation Area. So, but our first app, we created this map that you can see on the tree, and individuals simply walk down the trail and get to interact with the trees on a different level. We've created scripts that are engaging, that give each tree its own personality. We worked with local partners. We worked with political leaders in the area. We worked with our own staff and their families to create all these voices for all the different trees. So that in some cases, you might hear a local celebrity on a tree, and in other cases, it might be the son of one of our employees. And actually, I have a voice clip here. We won't play the full thing, but we'll play a little bit if we can click on that.
Wow, you found me. I'm a little maple sapling. What could be more Canadian than that? We maple trees are some of the best trees in the forest. Our leaf is on everything from the Canadian flag to jerseys of Toronto's hockey team. Go, Leafs, go! Want to know a secret? The one place our leaf isn't, the penny. I know. It's hard to find pennies these days, but if you do find one, you'll see a leaf that looks like a maple leaf. It isn't, though. It's a sycamore leaf. They are nice trees too.
You can pause it now.
Not maple leaves, but they're good friends.
So that is a very enthusiastic young man, the son of one of our employees, that voiced our maple sapling. And we have, like I said, a number of different trees throughout the park. So as you walk by, our maple sapling and others will chat with you. You can go on to the next slide now. So we did learn a number of lessons through this process. It took us a while to get the app developed and to create the scripts and everything else. And once we had it in play and we had the community engaging with it, we noticed a couple of things that as we've developed further trails, we've incorporated those lessons. One of them is the distance between trees. Or features. We want to make sure that they're close enough that people don't think that they've all of a sudden wandered off the trail and where's the next tree, when is it going to happen, but also not so close that if they start to walk away from a tree while it's talking, that they're not going to bump into yet another tree and cut off the recording. We also found that people have very short attention spans these days, and so like a minute and a half is the most time you have to create a script. And in that short period of time, it needs to be engaging and it needs to be enthusiastic. But and we've also noticed that in the winter time, that actually gets almost cut in half because, of course, it's cold. People want to keep moving, right? And so we had to keep that in mind too and start to adjust some of the scripts as we went along. Managing content takes time, drafting up those scripts and figuring out what each tree is going to say. It takes a lot of time, and it's something that, takes some energy. And so doing it from the side of your desk is sort of a side project, got to be a little bit challenging. And so we've had to work it into some work plans and actually assign it to somebody now that it's an up and running program. And of course, it also means that if you're going to manage that content, we have to have lots of different voices. So developing those relationships with the community members right across the community, whether it's local acting groups or one thing and another. 1 minute, not a problem. So developing those relationships was really important. And then of course, finding the technical support to manage the ongoing content and manage the background stuff. We'll go ahead to the next slide, which I believe is my last one. So the benefits, I guess, there's lots of benefits to the program. Certainly, it's a great way of creating a unique feature on the landscape. It's got, that educational aspect, but it also has some obvious tie-ins to tourism and economic development, which I think is really important for us as a conservation authority to contribute back to the tourism community. I bring this information forward as an opportunity for council to consider. And I was, if I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just wanted to give you an idea as to the kinds of things that we were doing within the community to support our people. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Really, really interesting, Christy. I'm looking for questions. Okay, I'll kick it off. Christy, can you do something like this on something that's not conservation authority? Like we've got Chase Park, which is a beautiful park in this area.
Yeah.
And a lot of the older stands of trees that would be very interesting. Plus the trails are there. What would you do in a situation like that? Because I know the person who has had problems getting online that's one of the things that he's interested in, is developing those trails. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. So yeah, absolutely. This is something that I think it works in a lot of different settings, so in community parks, whether it's information that you want to get across to the community, developing, if you have a trail developed, I'd be happy to work with your staff to sort of help them understand how the app works. We purchased this app and we have the ability to add content within our parks, where we're actually looking to transfer it over, the housing of it, transferring it over to a different provider where we have better support. And in those circumstances, we might be able to offer it out to some of our municipal partners and other conservation authorities at a more reasonable rate. The folks that we're working with are quite expensive. But at this point in time, we could certainly talk to your staff and see if there's an opportunity to pilot something on one of your properties through our app. So it would still come up as the Talking Forest, but they might be able to create some content, and that way we can upload it on our end and maybe pilot it to see if it's something that would work in your community.
Okay, I saw a hand go up there. Councillor Armstrong, was that your hand?
I did, yeah, thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor. Great project, Christy, really brilliant way to create new interpretive, interactive ways, especially with our younger people who have their phones with them where they go. But the mayor trigged an idea, which is that we are about to award an RFP for an open space / trails master plan in our municipality. And I think perhaps one of the people we can add to those that he or she speaks with in preparing a master plan might be you, so that that could form a part of the research that they do in looking at the development of plans. So I'm not sure who I'd suggest that to, whether it's Anne or somebody on staff, but if they could just make a note of it to include you, I think that would be a really positive thing.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to talk with them for sure.
Anybody else? Councillor Limeshead.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm thinking it's very nice that we've included our First Nations in the Talking Forest. So that's important.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a wonderful opportunity to share their language as well. So it was a huge honor for us to work with them in developing that trail.
Okay, if we could have a motion to accept this delegation, receive it. Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Limeshead, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a butternut tree. Yes.
I think Bob is back on the line, so if we wanted to get back to his presentation.
Okay. Should say my squirrels have a butternut tree. Okay, Bob, if you are ready, we are ready for you. 10 minutes, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
But you can't see me.
No.
Well, I'll take half. I'll take 50%. I hope this works. And my cell phone's right in front of me. If there's any problem in transmission, cell phones can have a life of their own. So I'll do my best. So thank you, Mayor Clarkson and members of council and staff and the virtual gallery. The Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee is pleased to have this opportunity to speak to you about our review of the Trent Severn Waterway Draft Management Plan. Next slide. It's not my intention to take a lot of time, simply to provide council with the results of our review of the TSW Draft Management Plan with some recommendations for consideration, including a municipal response to the TSW call for input. Next slide. As we would expect, the draft management plan is written at a very high level without a lot of detail, and that is also the level of our review. It's important to clarify what our review included and what it did not. First, the scope of our review was limited to the impact on Trent Lakes. And second, members of PRCAC are not experts in water management, and we defer that discussion to the Coalition for Equitable Water Flow. And in addition, in fact, integrated water management is not within our mandate. We know that the precursor to this draft plan, It's All About the Water report, resulted in multiple recommendations, of which many never left the drawing board. We need to ensure that workable recommendations align with a Municipality of Trent Lakes priorities. Next slide. We have made 3 additional assumptions. One is the need for alignment between Trent Lakes and Trent Severn Waterway strategic priorities, and there are 4 of them: open space, culture, arts, recreation, heritage, the development of partnerships, and the profile of parks, recreation, and culture. The second is the needed collaboration with EDAC, and specifically on aspects of cultural tourism. And finally, we identified 3 priority areas in the draft plan: tourism, culture and heritage, and integrated water management. Next slide. The TSW draft management plan reinforces the extent to which MTL, Trent Lakes, needs to build on the perception that it is a responsible and committed partner both within and beyond its geographical boundaries in both public and private sectors. The integrated water management component includes, but not limited to, CEWF, residents, and the waterway. Tourism includes, but is also not limited to, the Buckhorn District Tourist Association, Peterborough Court, the Chamber of Commerce, Trail Towns, the Buckhorn Community Center, and the municipality. And cultural and heritage is more difficult to get a handle on, but it includes the Greater Harvey Historical Society, the Peterborough Historical Society, local archives, and local enthusiasts. Next slide. What is key here is for the municipality to articulate clearly how significant a stakeholder we are in these discussions. After all, the core of the lakes are the entire southern boundary of the municipality, and Buckhorn is clearly the busiest lock on the system. The Reservoir Lakes is the largest series of reservoir lakes in the entire Trent system. It includes both the Nogies Creek and the Mississauga River as conduits from the reservoir to the canal lakes, and Misquazibi should not be forgotten as a third feeder system. Next slide. We need to ensure that all lakes and rivers feeding the canal lakes are recognized as essential components in the watershed. We also need to ensure that water levels do not have a negative impact on cottagers. We've all heard the constant refrain, the water seems to go up and down without any sense of strategy. So the negative impact could be dropping property values, lack of time spent here, all having economic impact on cottagers and the municipality's revenue base. The complexity of water management is a mystery to both seasonal and permanent residents, or a lot of them, and it shouldn't be. We need to encourage a comprehensive educational program describing the extent and the complexity of managing a watershed of this size. Next slide. Now let's look at tourism. These impacts below are pretty self-evident. Destination points, networking opportunities, and visitor capacity. But it is the fourth impact that we need to ensure that we are a part of, and that is the proposed strategy for a proposed integrated tourism strategy by 2032, which is directly aligned with the proposed economic development recovery plan in process in the municipality. Next slide. Further, the municipality of Trent Lakes is a major stakeholder at the hub of the waterway. Expanded tourism is a major component of the proposed economic development recovery plan, which is, I assume, about ready to kick off. EDAC has brought to council the need for such a plan. We must be at the table when any strategies for tourism are developed and demand that involvement if needed. And finally, there's a need to balance increasing tourism with its impact on residents, specifically traffic and parking. Next slide. Other three priorities, culture and heritage, has tremendous opportunities. At the same time, requires careful planning. Two of these three impacts are obvious, but the second is not. Research into the development of the canal system, threats, flooding, and sequencing of dams brought a lot of what is now Trent residents into this discussion, people like John Hall. That technological evolution was bookended between Buckhorn and Bobcaygeon to the west, and on the east to the edge of the former Harvey Ward near Burley. And the relationship with Indigenous peoples is well documented in those early days. The other party, of course, is the importance of outdoor recreation, low-impact tourism, and responsible development. Next slide. In our opinion, there are two significant considerations for Trent Lakes. One is to ensure that all the dams in the Trent Lakes component of the watershed are included in such a history of the evolution of engineering technology. It is a little known fact that the current Mississauga Dam is the fifth run at it. The legacy of Scott's Dam is significant when we consider the river a long time ago used to run to what's now a big bald. This history needs to be made known. And the last one is to ensure linkages between open spaces, heritage education, and cultural landscapes. For example, cemeteries. I know that this is well articulated in the RFP that you're going to be discussing later, but one of the most intriguing cultural landscapes here in Trent Lakes is Nogies Creek. The Nogies Creek Cemetery is an historic gold mine. Next slide. So we have 5 recommendations, each of which I will read. There is an overriding recommendation, of course, that MTL prepares a written response to the call for input from the waterway. As an aside, there's a Tridel building where I live, and its motto is, "Man is the architect of his destiny," and we could add to that of his heritage and his financial sustainability. We need to be proactive in both preserving and enhancing all three. So here are the 5 recommendations. First, that council support the response of the Coalition for Ethical Water Flow to the draft management plan, as endorsed by the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee on May the 12th, 2022. Second, the council endorse the strategies laid out in the draft management plan dealing with tourism and recreation and incorporate the intent of those strategies into the forthcoming Open Spaces Master Plan, Economic Development Renewal Plan. 3, the council endorses strategies laid out in the draft management plan dealing with culture and heritage and incorporate the intent of those strategies into the forthcoming Municipal Cultural Resources Management Plan. 4th, the council will encourage Parks Canada to undertake an extensive educational program to encourage a more comprehensive understanding by Trent Lakes residents of the scope and impact of the waterway on them. And finally, the PRCAC assists to the degree asked in the development of a formal submission to TSW requiring approval by the second council meeting in June, if no sooner. We don't have the luxury of a lot of time. So that's the presentation. That's our review of the plan and what we took out of it. I want to present to you and recommendations to proceed. If there are any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you for that. Have we got questions? I have one. In all of your studies and everything, what is the status of the recommendation on the wild rice? Because the wild rice is very slowly changing the ability of these lakes to service a lot of your recommendation, tourism, water flow, etc. So I would wonder if that has been part of this discussion.
Through to Mayor Clarkson, my reading of the master plan does not go into that level of detail. But it is an issue that was raised at our PRCIC meeting last week by Councillor Lansett. The impact of water flows on different kinds of habitat based on what time of year it is. So you're absolutely correct. It is something that we need to bring to their attention.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. Can we have a motion to receive this report, please, this presentation? Deputy Mayor Windover and seconded by Councillor Franzen. All in favor? Jesse?
Perhaps I could just clarify. There's the number of recommendations on the screen, so I just wanted to know if the motion was to just receive the presentation or to move forward with the recommendations.
Councillor Franzen.
As a seconder, I'd like to move forward with the recommendations.
Okay. The person who moved the report?
Yeah, good enough, yeah.
Okay, so you're okay with that change?
Yeah.
All in favor?
May I make a question or comment? Thank you, through Mayor. I'm supportive of that, but if we move forward with those recommendations, it looks like we need a point person to manage the preparation of a formal submission or response from the municipality of Trent Lakes. And if either Councillor Lambshead or Councillor Franzen are willing to do that, I might suggest that they would, since they are both representatives on the PRCAC.
Councillor Lambshead.
I certainly would, once we come up with a recommendations from Trent Lakes to formally present to Trent Severn Waterways. I'm sure we can do that through myself and probably the chair of our Parks and Recreation Culture Advisory Committee.
Okay, so is that a caveat to that first motion? Can we do that, or do we need two separate motions?
Were you intending that to be an amendment to, or?
Either.
I would put it, I think an amendment.
Put it into the motion, then it's all in one place. Yeah, so the amendment would simply be that, and we would designate Councillor Lambshead and or Councillor Franzen to be the point person for developing that submission.
Okay, is that all right with the first and second of that motion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, staff reports and public works, none. Recreation facilities, none. Fire and emergency services, none. Building and planning, Adele, please.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Clarkson, property owners of units 21 and 24 in Oak Orchard Plan of Condominium have applied to remove the holding provision on their respective properties. The property owners are intending to construct single detached dwellings and have satisfied all conditions related to removal of the hold, which includes the submission of an archaeological assessment along with the ministry letter identifying that the assessment has been entered into the public register of archaeological reports. They've also entering into a site plan agreement with the municipality, and documentation was provided to confirm engagement with Curve Lake First Nation in the preparation and finalization of the archaeological assessment. The notice of intention to pass an amending bylaw to remove the holding symbol was given in accordance with Section 36 of the Planning Act. Planning staff are supportive of the removal of the holding provision on units 21 and 24 and recommend the following: that council receive the report from the planner regarding entering into a site plan development agreement and removal of a holding symbol for units 21 and 24 in the Oak Orchard Plan of Condominium, and further that council support the approval of a bylaw to enter into the site plan development agreement and a bylaw to remove the holding symbol for units 21 and 24, which are on today's council agenda for consideration. And I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you very much, Adele. There's been so much work going to this. It is certainly heartening to see it get to this stage. I'm going to ask for comments from council. And if not, a motion, please. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would make a motion that council receive the report and also that council support the approval of a bylaw to enter into a site plan development agreement and a bylaw to remove the holding symbol for units 21 and 24 in Oak Orchard.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? And is there a comment? Councillor Lambshead?
Second that motion, thank you.
And any comment?
No, I think just a small burp. I think it's a lot of work and a lot of effort put into this by many different people. And I think the patience of the ratepayers that own those lots has been admirable. And I'm glad to see this moving forward.
I think we all concur. Okay, all in favor? Finance, Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer, Accounts Payable, please.
Thank you, and through you. Just accounts payable for the month of April for your information.
Okay, do we have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Motion is carried. Administration, none. Corporate Services, and Ruth, Deputy Clerk, award for the Open Spaces Master Plan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson. RFP-01-2022 for an open spaces master plan was posted on April 4th and closed on April the 27th. One bid was received and was reviewed and evaluated by the CAO Treasurer, Acting Deputy Treasurer, Director of Recreation Facilities, and the Deputy Clerk. The cost of this project was estimated at $30,000, and the one bid received was in excess of that amount. Additional funds in the amount of $40,382.44 will be required to proceed with the award of the RFP. The Open Spaces Master Plan will implement and support both the overall vision and the Open Spaces recommendations within the municipality's Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan, and aligns with Council's strategic priority themes by encouraging healthy, active living and promoting a resilient economy and environmental stewardship. Staff are recommending that RFP-01-2022 be awarded to Think Design with additional funding for the project from surplus funds from the Lakehurst parking lot paving project and from the General Government Reserve. Thank you.
Do we have questions? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Ann. Two things. One, I'm sorry I didn't think of this sooner, but and I'll leave it to you. But I would have thought maybe one of our other reserve funds, like the gas tax reserve, could be used for this rather than taking it out of general government. But I'll leave that to you to take a look at, just because it would be an active transportation type of initiative. And the second thing is, I'm wondering if council could be provided with a work plan from the successful bidder if we approve this, so that we can see what the process is and what the deliverables are and the dates for those.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson. I would refer the question about the gas tax reserve to the CO treasurer. I believe that the recommendation actually includes the sources of the additional funding, so perhaps it's best for her to address that now if possible. And in regard to the providing council with the work plan, I don't anticipate any issue with that, and certainly we can identify that to the Director of Recreation and Facilities, that once the initial meeting with the vendor, assuming the RFP is awarded, we could look at how that can be circulated for information.
Okay, I have a question. If there's only one person who applied for this, and they come in at $10,000 more than what we thought the project was worth, and there's no panic for a deadline on this, what is the problem with resubmitting that question? And the other thing I would like to know is, what is the familiarity of this person with that role? We've been quite, and I wouldn't say famous, but we have been known to select people to do studies on things that have no knowledge of us. And I'm speaking specifically of the one who did the first study on where we should put our roads depots. And the study that we've just completed a little while ago about the suitability of the rink and the space. So I would be very interested in knowing what the knowledge is of this person to be able to give us the answers that we need. And I would also suggest that maybe it would be worth resubmitting the request. Your comments?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson. In regard to the knowledge of the bidder, the submission was evaluated by the evaluation team and scored well in the rated elements, which assesses the ability of the bidder to complete the work. In regard to your question about the receiving one bid, the municipality's purchasing policy does include provisions when only one bid is received, and there is potential that the bid call could be reissued. Recognizing that we're significantly over budget, I would anticipate the scope would likely need to be revised if council was to go out again. Alternatively, of course, council could deny the request for additional funds and cancel or defer the project. And perhaps if the Director of Recreation and Facilities is available, he may wish to comment.
And where is this company from, if you don't mind?
Through you, Think Design is based in Toronto. The bid submission was submitted through Think Design, and they have identified that they intend to partner with a company that is local to Trent Lakes.
Is our director of plan, are you on there, Dylan?
I'm here, Mayor.
Are you satisfied with this, Dylan, or would you like to see this go back out?
I was very impressed with the proposal. It is obviously significantly over budget. I would have concerns about going back out and changing and reducing the scope and receiving a lesser product for what Trent Lakes needs. We're at the stage now, we need a master plan for our open spaces and trails. You know, there's not extra bells and whistles in this. I think it's the nature of the beast. You know, I can talk about how I came to the budget figure that we got there. I went through similar projects at other municipalities, kind of got a per capita cost of those and applied it to Trent Lakes population. And it just, this must be the market conditions at this stage. Only receiving one bid was surprising, I will say that much. But I fear if we were to reissue this with a lesser scope, we end up with a lesser product that maybe, leaves, more to be desired, and we're spending more money on more studies down the road. Anyways, right?
Thank you. Councillor Franzen, you have a question?
Yeah, just a comment. I'm not surprised at the increase. I didn't think it'd be quite this much, but I knew it would be significantly more than $30,000. I would support the staff's recommendation.
Councillor Lampstead.
Yeah, I think I agree with Councillor Franz, and it's important to get this started because this is a long process that's going to take some time, and we need to start planning. Our Parks and Recreation people need to plan what they're going to do and where we're going to do it. So I think it's important for this to get back to council. So I would certainly support the increase in budget. And
Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Deputy Mayor Windover, any?
I was just going to say that even though this organization is based in Toronto, if you look at all of their projects, and they have dozens of them, which they have done all across Ontario in small and larger communities. So their experience base is well beyond just the Toronto area.
Do we have a motion and a seconder? Okay, yes.
Sorry, what was the motion and who was the seconder?
Councillor Franzen made the motion. Councillor Lampstead seconded, I believe.
I believe my motion was that staff supports staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, council expenses and
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson. This report brings forward council expenses submitted for the month of April for council's consideration and approval. It should be noted that both the mayor and deputy mayor have exceeded their 2022 conference budgets prior to consideration of their April expense claims. This amount being 11/12 of the budget in the year of municipal election. Staff are recommending that expenses that are compliant with the policy be approved, anticipating that overages and individual member expenses can potentially be offset by savings within the overall council budget for 2022. Further, some expenses claimed by the mayor and deputy mayor were not compliant with section 4.13 and 4.14 of the council conferences and expense claims policy. These claims are detailed in the report and are not included in the amounts recommended for approval. Council has the authority to override the policy and approve these additional expenses, which must be done by a separate resolution. Thank you.
now I'm going to speak to those, and I think Ron probably will do the same. Anybody who is out in Toronto and plans to get a meal, these allowances are not high enough. And my one breakfast that's in there, I went to the first where they said breakfast was offered, and I went as the conference was starting up. They didn't have a speck of protein in the place. So I called for the chef, and the chef came out and he said, I apologize, but he said, I can do nothing about it. He said, the next conference, if you guys have got diabetics and whatever, ask for it ahead of time. So the following morning, I went out and got breakfast. So that's what it is. And as far as the receipts are concerned, I brought visas, which dictated the meal and where it was and everything else. And I don't know what else they want. Because if you expect to go into a busy place for lunch and you want somebody to write out something different than that, you're not going to get it. So is anybody in the motion that I'm going to pass this motion, or are you going to pull this out, or up to whatever? Yes, Councilor Armstrong.
I guess I'll make the motion first and then the comment. I would receive the report and approve or authorize payment for those expenses that are compliant with policy. And the only comment would be, and I don't disagree with your comments, but we have a policy for a reason. If a staff person had not complied with policy, they wouldn't get reimbursed. And I don't think we should do that with council either. I think we should be setting an example.
Councillor Francis.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to that motion, is that we should look at our policy, have staff review our policy, and I would second Councillor Armstrong's motion, but with the proviso that we, for future conferences, that we review our policy.
I would accept that amendment.
So in other words, after the fact, you're going to adjust the policy. Thanks.
It's very difficult to adjust policy before the fact or after the money's been spent.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote.
Are you ready for the vote?
Yep,
Okay, Mayor Clarkson, are you in favor?
I am.
Councillor Franzen?
Sorry,
Yes.
could you read the motion so that everybody's clear on what it is?
I might just have voted the wrong way.
Right.
Yes, you did, yes.
I'm looking after you.
So what,
For clarification, it's that council received the report from the deputy clerk regarding council expenses for April 2022, and authorizes payment for compliant expenses. And further, that council directs staff to review the conferences, something policy. And to report back to council at a later date. And Mayor Clarkson requested a recorded vote. I will start again. Mayor Clarkson, are you in favor?
Am I? Let's do it again. Just the first one.
The council received the report from the deputy clerk regarding council expenses for April 2022 and authorizes payment for compliant expenses.
Only, so then I'm against that.
Councillor Franzen,
In favor.
Councillor Lambshead,
Yes, I'm in favor. I've been through this.
Deputy Mayor Windover,
no,
Councillor Armstrong,
Yes.
that is carried.
Okay. Okay, Jesse, you're going to speak about an unopened road allowance.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson, at the April 19th, 2022 regular meeting of council, council directed staff to proceed with the application from Roseanne Biles and Jim Bouchard to purchase the unopened road allowance adjacent to their properties. Staff placed notice in accordance with the disposal of real property policy, and no comments from neighboring property owners have been received at this time. The recommendation from staff is to receive the report, declare the unopened road allowance as surplus to the needs of the municipality, to authorize the stop-up and closure of the road allowance, and authorize the sale to the adjacent landowners, being Roseanne Biles and Jim Bouchard, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute any documents necessary to effect the sale of this property.
Okay, can we have a motion, please? Councillor Lambshead?
I would like to make that a motion to approve that as recommended.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Armstrong, all in favor?
Comment?
Yep.
Just a second. It's just an appraisal, that they get the appraisal, and I don't see why the municipality wouldn't get the appraisal and charge the owners. It's not very often they get appraisal by the purchasers that's
No.
accepted, or by the purchasers accepted by the buyer. And we're only asking for one appraisal, a minimum of one appraisal. I don't know if you're going to get a fair price.
Mayor Clarkson, in the policy, it says that the applicant's responsible for all costs, and we do typically only ask for one appraisal to be completed by the applicant, and that is brought back to council at a later date to approve the amount.
Okay, so that's what we voted on.
Okay.
All in favor? Okay, I just see, okay, the motion is passed. Correspondence for information. Anybody want to pull anything out of this? Councillor Franzen?
Yeah, I would like to support from Mississippi Mills.
Okay, if anybody else, do you want to, we need a resolution for this?
Through you, the correspondence for information is generally resolutions that council has already either received or supported in the past. I can't recall specifically. The Ontario Must Build It Right for the first time, I believe it was supported. But if you'd like, we can pull it, receive the rest for information, and Councillor Trent can move a motion to support.
Okay, is there anything else anybody wants to pull? All right, so we'll pull that one out, and then Councillor Franzen, you can make a motion to support.
Yes.
So Councillor Franzen is supporting the resolution regarding Ontario Must Build It Right the first time. We need a seconder. Councillor Lambshead, all in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, yes.
Sorry, if I could just have a motion to
Receive
receive the rest. Yep, thank you.
Okay, motion to receive the rest of the correspondence information. Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion is carried. Bylaws. Jesse?
Yes, thank you. Through you, there were a couple of bylaws on today's agenda that didn't have a corresponding staff report or were not part of a public meeting. The first is B 2022-52, which is a zoning bylaw amendment for file 2201. Public meeting was held March 22nd and was supported by council, and approval was deferred pending the preparation of a site plan agreement. And B 2022-55 is the bylaw to authorize the execution of a consent agreement for severance files B 8620 and 8720. The agreement is a condition of their approval.
Okay. Now, we need a site plan development agreement for Zoff and Adams. B 2022 and 448. We need a motion, please. Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Franzen, all in favor? Motion is carried. B 2022-049, removal of the holding provisions for file 20 for Zoff Adams. Motion, please. Councillor Armstrong. Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion is carried. 2022-050 for Watson and Green. Motion, please. Deputy Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Lambshead, all in favor? Motion is carried. 2022-051, removal of a holding provision for file number 2210, Watson and Green. Motion, please. Councillor Franzen, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion is carried. 2022-052, zoning bylaw amendment for file number A. Fifth motion, I am Councillor Lambshead and Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? Motion is carried. 2022-055, consent agreement for Hay. Motion, please. Councillor Lambshead and Councillor Armstrong. All in favor? Motion is carried. Business arising out of a previous meeting. Looking for hands. None. Notice of motion. Councillor Franzen, do you want to introduce your motion, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. Kind of a short one. It's concerning the sports pad. Whereas there is a municipal election in 6 months, and whereas the 2018 municipal election, there was no mention of any expansion of the Buckhorn sports pad by candidates, ratepayers, and whereas the municipality has a large infrastructure project starting soon. Therefore, be it resolved, all discussion or further resolutions on the sports pad be deferred until after the 2022 municipal election.
Okay, comments, please. Councillor Lambshead, yes.
Sorry, through you, perhaps you want to give a seconder to the motion before discussion?
Okay, can we have a seconder to the motion before discussion? Councillor Armstrong?
I'll second it to start the discussion.
Okay. We don't vote on that yet.
We can have discussion.
Councillor Lampstead?
I liken this motion to the opposite side of a coin from the last motion from the last meeting. I feel that we've asked for information from a group, and now we're not going to talk about the information that we've asked for. So I think if we had the information first, I would certainly, then we can discuss this sort of a motion. So my look at it is we've asked for information and we're not waiting to get it. So I think this is just, again, the cart before the horse. Let's wait till the horse gets in the barn and then we can discuss what we're going to do or not do.
Councillor Franzen?
I'd be willing to defer this motion till the second meeting in June.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Councillor Lampstead?
And that was going to be part of my comment there, was that this is probably a more appropriate motion for some time later, once we've received our comments from the BCC.
Okay.
Jesse?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson. Just procedurally, Councillor Franzen, would you be willing to withdraw your original motion?
And reinstitute it at a later date?
Yep, instead the motion would be that you're deferring this to the second meeting in June.
I would prefer to defer it to the second meeting in June.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Okay, seeing no hands.
I would second that.
Okay.
We're deferring, yeah.
Anybody else a comment? All in favor? Motion is carried. Information items, liaison reports for external boards and committees. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about that they've been to? Any other information items? Closed meeting? Business arising from the closed meeting? Concerning bylaw? Motion, please. Councillor Lambshead.
Motion to
Councillor
approve.
Armstrong. Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? Motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Windover. Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Wow, look